Trauma survivor or trauma thriver, how I dealt with trauma in my life. Trauma survivor or trauma thriver, fears and worry. Hello y'all, I'm Dianna, Brianne. I don't give advice, suggestions, information, recommendations. I just share with you my viewpoints on different topics, as is with this one. I hope you like, share, subscribe. Channel names are pinned at the top of the comment section or description box below. So I'm going to talk about me personally because I don't give advice or suggestions. So I'll just talk about trauma from my perspective and real fears and what I consider unreal fears. You know, I've talked a lot about fears and I've talked about trauma before, and I have been through my own share of traumatic experiences in my life, throughout my life. And I ended up with, fears and worry and trying to control a lot of things so that, my feeling of being in control would protect me somehow. And so I had a lot of side effects. Most were minor and, easy to deal with, yet even though at that they were annoying to me to have the side effects of trauma. And, some people go through trauma and initially they're a trauma survivor. And, there's a lot of, I consider myself a trauma survivor at one point, but then I want to move out of that and become a trauma thriver. Means that I passed from survivor to thriver, that I used that trauma, I got through it, I dealt with it to the very best of my ability. And even if it tries to resurface, I know how to deal with it. If it kind of surfaces through like a PTSD type of thing, or through fears or worries or other kind of sideline type of things. And so I consider myself a thriver. And actually, sometimes the trauma that I've been through actually pushes me forward. I go through my fears. I go through my worries. I go through them. I deal with them. I'm not going to let them run or ruin my life. And so many people live in survivor mode that they never get into thriver mode. And I realize that there is a time, like when you're out in a little boat out in the middle of the ocean, just bouncing around, you're kind of surviving. And that's the time that you are surviving. But once you've got back to shore, then to consider yourself a survivor ongoing rather than a thriver at some point is probably going to hold you to that definition, and your choices and behaviors may be built around that. So I choose, me personally, to move from survivor to thriver when at all possible, respecting the time that I had been a survivor, because there's a time to be a survivor when you're actually in the mode of surviving something, surviving a storm in life, or surviving what you're going through. And yet, when you have come to the other side and it no longer serves you to just be a survivor, and it serves you better to be a thriver, I choose to move into thriver mode, respecting the time that I had been in survivor mode. So I want to go into thriver mode. I want to use that trauma or fear or whatever it happened to be to push me forwards in a good way. And, I've talked about this. I think we all get fears and worries. For me, I tend, if it's a realistic fear, I acknowledge it, because some fears can be good if they're used in a right way. If a bear is charging at you through the woods, that's a good fear to have. You get out of its way. Now, after you're safe and another bear is never going to come at you again, to hold on to that fear and let it run your life or ruin your life long after there's no more no more bears around, then it's going to probably hold a person back. And so if I have that fear after, then I just talk to myself and I say, there's no more bears, there's no more bears, and I move through that fear. If that were the situation, And so I believe in respecting fears from the standpoint, if they're a healthy fear that's used to protect us, that's one thing. But when they're used to hold us back, that's another thing. And I don't want those in my life. And often people who've had a real fear, it can turn into then later an unhealthy fear where it's no longer serving its purpose that it originally did. And now it's serving just the purpose of holding us back. So for me, I tend to, if there's a purpose for it, I tend to go through my fear, I face my fear. If there's no purpose to face a fear, like, okay, I'm going to go up and I'm going to jump out of an airplane with a parachute, and that's not my thing to do, then I'm probably not going to face that fear, okay? Because it's unnecessary for me to face it. But if it's for me to get from point A to point B in my life, I'm probably going to face that fear at some point, and hopefully sooner rather than later. And I don't want to let that fear linger in my life. Trauma, like I said, I've been through trauma in my life. I talked about some of it, and some of it I haven't. We don't have to share everything on social media, and we don't have to share everything in person. It's just what we choose to share and what we choose not to share. And so I choose to recognize the times in my life that I've survived, and yet I choose to use it to thrive going forward. Meaning that, once I'm in safe mode or happy mode and it's not going to happen anymore, I don't want to hold on to that. I want to move forward to the best of my ability. And like I said, I respect that time when I've had to survive in my life in different ways, and yet I want to move out of that, and I want to move towards the positive, to being a thriver in every area of my life. Okay? From my house to yours, may God bless you. I hope you like, share, subscribe, and I hope to talk to you soon again. Bye-bye.